welcome again to the Executive Room podcast, where we delve deep into the minds of remarkable executives who have shaped the business world with their ideas and actions. I'm your host, Kimberly Afonso, CEO and founder of the KA Consulting Group, where we are experts in CEO visibility and influence. And today, it's an honor to have Ed Macha join us. Ed Macha is the founder and CEO of Reliable Controls, a global leader in industrial commissioning and automation. With over 26 years of experience, he has driven the company's growth by combining sustainability, safety, and cutting-edge technology to modernize the industry. Under his leadership, Reliable Controls has built a culture of critical thinking and accountability, empowering diverse teams to challenge the status quo and deliver lasting impact across the mining, energy, and industrial sectors. Ed is recognized for his vision in developing the next generation of skilled talent to meet the world's growing industrial and environmental demands. So let's get started. Great to have you here today, Ed, and I'd love to hear more about your origin story. You founded Reliable Controls over 26 years ago and built it into a global partner for industrial commissioning, automation, and process control. Can you take us back to the early days? What inspired you to start the company, and how has your professional journey evolved over the years?
No, by all means, Kimberly, and it's my pleasure to be on your podcast, and thanks for inviting me, and be able to chat with you. So to answer your question, going back 26 years ago, what how did what inspired me and how it was at the beginning of getting this company off the ground. I look back, at that time I was pretty young. I was 28 years old, and I just finished a project, and I always wanted to be self-independent. I kind of wanted to develop something new, and I remember I drew up on a napkin an idea of where I wanted to do. This is in a hotel room. I was in northern Argentina, and then it started materializing it. And then the key thing is when you make a decision. I made a decision to build an organization, primarily focused on process controls, and then dive into commissioning. And I'll tell you something. The first probably 6 months, 9 months, although we got some little smaller projects, I spent a lot of time creating what Reliable Controls was. So you would find me at Kinko's, actually using Illustrator and Adobe InDesign and all of that, formulating what my ideas were and where I wanted to take it, what would differentiate me from, as a business. So a lot of thought and process went into defining, and up to this date is defining and identifying and having clarity as to where you're headed. So that's really what inspired me to do things. And what I'm telling you, the process is what really formalized it, internalized it. It became a mirror for me as to what we're developing. And that became call it the roadmap of, as I transitioned. And obviously, as I would develop this vision, whether it's graphically or, a document, obviously I use some subject matter experts to help me guide, including my father, to help me guide us to where I was going. So it was a beautiful experience, I tell you that much.
Incredible. And what an amazing entrepreneurial journey, and seeing the vision before it came alive. I think that was a great example of that. And I found it really interesting talking about culture, that you've been really passionate about creating a culture where critical thinking and accountability are celebrated. How did you establish that culture in such a diverse, highly technical, high stakes environment? And what were some of the biggest challenges along the way to creating that culture?
That's a very, very key question here. And we're still trying to build that culture. I mean, we built it, but continue expanding on it, and people that come into the company, and not only our employees. When we go to other job sites, now you're dealing with different individuals from different nations and different backgrounds. You're doing work internationally, so you have to adapt to where you're working at. But to me, it just really boils down to four critical items. One is, to me, is to have clarity. And when I say clarity, is you have to have clear thinking and understanding of what you're set to do, and what really your values and what you believe in, and also understanding the work that you're going to do, and have clarity in mind of how you're going to go up, what you know, how you're going to go about it, and also what you don't know and you need to learn. So you have to have clarity before you move that. And then you develop objectives after that. Once you have clear mind, then you have objectives. Okay, this is the next step. This is how I'm going to move forward. You develop your roadmap. And once you have both of those, you kind of have a purpose. Then that's what gives you purpose to move forward. And after that is all that together brings you to accountability. And when I say accountability, it's self-accountability, where you measure yourself as to what, your objectives, what you're aiming for. So I supply it as a life vision. Now, if you look at it in the context of the industrial world, or where our company sits, we're dealing with the first time that we are introducing energy into a facility, introducing water or volume, introducing ore or chemicals. It puts you into different contexts, because our job, when we talk about commissioning, it's not part of construction. We're taking construction really is the first phase of operations. When we're looking at introducing for the first time this type of energy and processes or chemicals, you have to look at with clarity as to how you're going to take a system that's just been built. Somebody engineered it, somebody built it. Now you have to prove it. And what are the different steps you're going to go through until you turn it over to an operations group when you start, ramping up to full production. Yeah. So that gives you clarity as to what's in front of you, and then your objectives is how you're going to get there. And then obviously the purpose of what the endeavor is, and the accountability and the gates that you have to go through in bringing these processes into service. There's quite a bit of that, but I would have to say, if you put the human individual first, then the first thing that comes to mind is the safety of every and well-being of every individual. And then obviously you look into how you're going to take this and get it up and running safely and efficiently and on time. And those are the key things that we look at in developing that clarity. How are we going to eat this elephant? And piece by piece, how are we going to systemize this? How are we going to get it up and running?
Very, very well said. And that, leads into my next question about raising awareness. You've mentioned that the world needs to double copper production from 21 to 50 million metric tons over the next 2 decades, and warned that without mining and metals, there's no future in tech or sustainability. What does that scale up look like in practice?
Yes, and I made that statement. In fact, I spoke about that subject to the University of Utah last week. Now, what we're looking at is the scale up, the capacity, how we need to scale. It's actually this year's about 24 million metric tons to 50 million metric tons. But let's put something into context. So it gives you some type of magnitude. Since 2010 till now, till 2024, that we have recorded numbers, we have increased world capacity only by 7 million metric tons. So we gone from 16 to 23 million metric tons. And most of it has been, some major mining companies, and a lot of it has been, modernizations or expansion of facilities. Now, so if in 15 years we've done 7, million metric tons. And in the next 25, we're looking at 30. We're looking at a physical law here. Is that the market? And one of the things that drives mining is there's many components, but one is the exploration. We are looking at having to go deeper to find the ore. Two is the need of large amounts of water that are required to produce these materials or get them out of the ground and make them into usable metal. And then you're dealing with an enormous amount of demand that our civilization has never seen. Just to maintain human life as we know it, the electrical grids are housing vehicles. We're using about 23 million metric tons with a population of about 8 billion people. And if you start looking at the growth and demand for each individual, and now that we're using more copper for electrification, electrical vehicles, windmills, and the data centers have a huge amount of copper required, and you have to maintain the growth of human population. So what's going to happen, to meet that demand, it's almost impossible, and there's a lot of regulations in place. It takes 10 to 15 years to get a mine from concept to operations. So we're talking about building about uh, you know 6 to 10 mines a year for the next 25 years, and that I don't see that happening. Things have to change both in the political atmosphere and also in how we engineer things, how we utilize water. There's also workforce shortage issues. So it's very important that the awareness be there for, what are the real demands of this metal, which are real, and how to best utilize those. Uh, Copper is the backbone of our civilization from day one. From the Bronze Age till now, it's really expanded with electricity. So those are the challenges that I'm seeing, both in the actual physical availability of the resources, also the extraction and the cost of it. So what I see happening, and it's already going, prices are increasing tremendously, and it's going to affect everybody. And this is where a lot of people don't connect the two. As the prices of coppers increase, which are increasing, well, your housing is going to increase, your vehicle cost is going to increase, transportation is going to increase, infrastructure, so everything is going to increase, and the ones that are going to be affected the worst are the people that are already on the lower level, and society-wise, that the poor are going to be the ones that are affected by it. And I think the awareness needs to be up to not just, we talk about, universities and all of that, but to the policymakers. Because the decisions that are being made to prioritize certain technologies that are very copper intensive and weigh that to the well-being of a community or of society, those things need to be taken into consideration. And also facilitating and assisting the mining industry to be able to expand and grow. So it's very complex, Kimberly, but there's a lot of implications if we don't get this right.
Oh, completely. And thank you for sharing that with us because I personally, before meeting you, Ed, had no idea. And I think it's really, really important for, the public to know as well as all of our listeners. So why do you think there's this massive disconnect between, you know, clean energy, electric vehicles, the increase in mining that's requirement? Why do you think so few people connect the dots between all of this? And how do you believe that the awareness gap can be closed?
No, that's something I've looked into it for the last 12 years. We launched this awareness program about 2015, 2016, and to communicate with policymakers, to communicate with universities, and little by little. But one of the things that I run into is maybe it's not having the information to do this, and it's not really in front of people. Uh, you know, we have a growing population. That's a fact. Climate change is an issue. That's a fact. Water concerns are a fact. But one of the things we don't have, and we don't have a unified vision as a nation, or even the different groups, is to a roadmap how we're going to get from point A to point B. And when people say, oh yeah, we're going to go net zero, or we're going to net 12, or, well, analyze the basic needs. And I think the critical thinking comes into, and is to understand, okay, we're going to create this, but what is it really going to take? And one of the things that I tell people, okay, copper is everywhere. In your cell phone, this computer, this video, really everything that you utilize has got copper. But it's just one of the many minerals or metals that we use. Your vehicle, your typical vehicle uses about 50 to 80 pounds of copper. Electrical vehicle uses 400. One of those windmills is about 5 tons of copper. And to give you, just so people understand, when we in a mine, we look at how much copper is in the ore. Just imagine, this bottle, only 0.05% is copper. And we have to go in and extract that copper and then make it into a metal. So it takes a lot of mining. It takes literally moving mountains. And I'm trying to explain here is the dissonance is what it takes to produce those metals. And I think the emotional undercurrent is, well, we got to do something because the climate's changing and maybe it's a doomsday clock. But we also have to tie it back into how do we make these metals, or how we get those metals out of the ground. And that disconnect is not there. And how much is being utilized by humanity. For example, and this is where it gets even more concerning, during this, I guess call it my campaign to learn more about sustainability. I traveled to the, South America, very poor areas of South America. And I'm like, okay, people are still living in huts. People are still using wood. People are still, moving with, horses and mules. And there's a lot of population that's still living. About 2 billion people still are using wood as the primary source of heat, primary source of, fuel for cooking, you name it. And then we want to transition the whole world into this net zero. And with all due respect, we have to analyze the cause and effect. Okay, we're gonna go. It's a great idea. It's very utopian, but if you look at the science and the physical laws behind it, it's going to be very hard, impossible almost. And what it drives to now is you see geopolitical. You see China restricting minerals. You look at different. It's creating a lot of supply chain issues as to who's got access to those metals and minerals. So there's a lot of items that need to be addressed to be able to really focus on what is good for society, and we gotta be very conscious about it. Now, how to break awareness, I think, is to really be brutally honest with people. Yes, this is a great goal, and some of us that live in the modern world, that we go to Home Depot and think, we're just gonna get some tubing, some copper, is to really go find out, okay, where does this copper come from? Where does cobalt come from? Where do we get nickel? Where do we get all these minerals and metals that make life possible? And these technologies that we are applying, what is it going to take? And that's where the critical thinking comes in. I think we're in a very pivotal point in our civilization, and we got to be very smart how we go about it. Easier said than done. It's gonna. If I had a magic wand, I wish it would be great if people understand it, but we have to remove ideology and really face reality.
So, Ed, I know that you've previously mentioned how technologically advanced the industry has become. I'd love for you to share that with our listeners and also share a little bit about alternatives to copper. I know you're really positive about the future, and it would be great to hear your take on some of this.
No, no, by all means, Kimberly. I have to say, I was born in a mining town, so that's a long time ago. But one of the key things is, yes, mining, 50 years ago is not the same mining as it is right now. It acquired a bad name. Uh, that's just the way it was. But in today's facilities, the mining facilities that are being built, especially by the big giants, are very, very, very modern facilities. They're very focused on energy consumption, energy use, water usage, reclamation. They're already built their facilities into how they're gonna reclaim them. Uh, so a lot of great stuff, and these are very technological plants. These are not, a lot of people think there's a miner with a hard hat, with the light and the picks. No, this is big equipment, very technologically advanced, and very conscious when it comes to the environment. Uh, and and that's sometimes it's not publicized. The other thing that when you mentioned, and this is a subject that fascinates material sciences, to study and research alternatives uh, for different applications. We know aluminum is good for a transmission. The best electrical one is gold, but that's really rare. But there's got to be ways that we can look at different material sciences that we can use to help with this, electrification, I guess call it, or where we're headed. Those things are important, and I think is gonna be a big driver, Kimberly, is gonna be uh, the augmentation that will be done for the capacity of the researchers or these people is utilizing artificial intelligence to help discover, as they're discovering new medicines, they're discovering new concepts, is to focus it on that. So this it's got to be a lot of different ways. If you look at it from the water issue to the energy conservation to different material sciences, that's where the possibilities are endless. And if you look at it in positivity, I think we'll get through. We'll be fine.
And I know you are involved, Ed, in alliances and, education. Tell us a little bit more about that and why that's so important. Just as you've been speaking today, it's really clear that there's a lot of misconceptions about the mining industry. I also myself used to think it was with the hard hat and the light on it, and that's it. So tell us a little bit more about the alliances and how important that is for the future of the industry and the minerals we need.
Let the alliance between uh, academia, policymakers, uh, the industry, and obviously society. Am I hearing this correctly?
Yep.
And also, uh, I believe in alignment of uh, supply chain issues or this, because there's a lot of geopolitics in it. But I'm going to focus on the first four: academia, industry, policy, and society. And that's where seems to be most of the disconnect. The what I believe the industry should be more vocalized is to show people how advanced some of these facilities are. It's almost like You go into some of these control rooms, it's like Star Wars. The information that's being collected, for reliability, for predictive analytics, for process optimization, and even going to exploration, it's amazing the technologies that are being created, implemented, and it's really in a scale. So the industry is doing amazing things on that. I think academia sometimes boxes into disciplines. Oh, well, we don't have a mining department. No, but we have electrical engineers, chemical, every gamut, business people, marketing people that belong in mining. So academia needs to look at, okay, this is a critical sector. How can we adapt some of our curriculum to help the mining industry? And policymakers need to look at things with fact, not on partisan lines, not on ideology, but what is good for their constituents, and put their heart here and say, hey, this is reality, and let's find solutions. This is how we're going to get through, and create policy that makes sense, because that's where then society, I believe, will understand how all of this ties together, and it's got to be aligned. So people are not hearing conflicting stories, or this is wrong or this is right. Is dealing with facts, and aligning those four, and working with media to portray a fact-based reality. That would be great to have. That those five elements working together, Kimberly.
And I love what you said, Ed, based on facts. That's
Yeah,
something that, I think everyone can agree. If it's based on facts, it's something we can all get behind.
I agree. Thank you, Kimberly. Yeah, I fully agree on that.
And what, if you had one message, Ed, so as we're talking about the awareness, of course, and I'm personally learning a lot about, you know, some things that maybe are nice on a headline but aren't realistic, like you mentioned, some of the utopian goals. If you had one message that you'd love for the general public to understand, if it was like one sentence, what would it be?
Put humanity first. Uh, and I'll tell you why, Kimberly. Because each one of us, we all want to have, we all need our basic energy needs. We all need our, life to learn, to motivate, to grow, to believe, and grow in families and the next generation. If you put humanity first, put the human first, then you start looking at not just in the United States, I'm talking worldwide, and see the demand and see what each individual requires. Then I think it'll give you a different perspective uh, if you put the human first.
Amazing. And what has potentially changed or opened your eyes? I know you travel the world, you have projects all over the world, you recruit talent from over 20 nationalities. What are some of the things, you mentioned before how wood is a big source of, heating and everything like that for over 2 billion people. Have there been any other things that have opened your eyes that you've seen firsthand?
I think when it comes to, I'll give you an example. Yeah, these are critical items that I believe needs to be addressed, and I hope I answer your question. When I talk about workforce shortage, uh, here in the United States, just the U.S. alone, we have an aging workforce in the mining industry. The U.S. is able to produce, quite a bit of its copper for use here in the U.S. as it is right now, both from Arizona and here in Utah, and import some from South America. But the key thing here is about half the population that's working in the United States right now, but in 5 years will be retiring, and there's nobody coming back to replace those jobs in the mining industry. I'm not just talking copper, but in general for the overall mining industry. Well, that's going to be crippling to our economy. Keep it in mind that mining is the only industry, and I can say this with certainty. For every mine that is in the world, you create 5 to 7 indirect jobs that support that industry. So it's an incredible job creator. Uh, so these are the things that I've seen in my experiences. Not only do we have a shortage of minerals that we can't even expand, now we're not going to have the people to actually do the job to get those minerals and metals that we need. So that's kind of a double whammy. Uh, the other thing that comes to my reality is water. I'm very concerned about water because that is your biggest, I guess, call it uh, roadblock, because we need water for agriculture, we need water for human consumption, and we need water for mining, and lots of water. So you have these competing interests. So we have to think outside the box. How are we going to go ahead and get the water that's going to feed people, that's going to feed the agriculture, that's going to provide that water, and also provide the water for industry. And that's something nobody is addressing, and it needs to be addressed immediately. It's critical. And then you
Wow.
have climate change on top of that.
So it's a perfect storm.
It can be. Uh, and I don't think people are looking at it in that context. And I'm not trying to sound, I'm giving you facts and information that's valid.
Oh,
Uh,
definitely. And Ed, I'd love to segue this podcast. As you know, I always speak about vocal leadership. And the reason I invited you on is because I've seen you publicly talk about everything that you're saying here. You talk about it as well on LinkedIn, about water, about the copper shortages, about the mining industry. You're super vocal. You're, involved in universities. You're doing a lot. How has that influenced your business? And what is your view on how vocal should a leader of a company be?
I think it's a responsibility to be able to share your ideas and thoughts and experiences for people to understand, obviously without being offensive, never. But in a way to inform and educate, I think that's very critical. I look back when, and this is not criticism, but when the news, the first, actually the only industry that's protected by the First Amendment, their job was to inform and educate, and I don't think they're doing that. So I think the leaders, whether it's CEOs or in academia, anywhere, I think they have a responsibility to inform and educate people, obviously with facts.
And has that been something that's always come easy to you? You have, for example, a really active LinkedIn. Is that something that, was always easy for you to do, or did it take a while to build that up?
It took a while because it takes time to research, Kimberly, and it takes time to go to the ground and see yourself and talk to people. This is not something this is talking to the people on the ground, seeing things and understanding an industry, and also talking to policymakers, or going to the government or the communities and talking to what their needs are. So it's based on experience. So it wasn't overnight, and also I love history. I love philosophy, and I like to tie and connect the dots, and that's something that's always come pretty uh, not easy, but it's a trait that I have. So I go back and try to connect dots, not just markets and everything, and then this is one of those big dot connections where I went, uh, we have Houston, we have a problem.
Yeah, very, very well said. What advice would you give, Ed, to other leaders who are still a little bit hesitant to put themselves out there?
I think this what drives people hesitant. It's probably I would have to say maybe uh, blowback or fear, or maybe not being seen or maybe stepping outside their lane, or, or being seen as, I don't know, I guess call it optics. Uh, but I believe it's okay to speak your mind, and I think it's good to uh, speak with facts and you know how. Uh, I grew up in mining all my life. I grew up around it. I've been, a lot of different countries working in mining, so I know something that's unique to who I am as an individual. But there's leaders that are in finance, in medicine, in legal, product development, computer, software. They have a perspective that's unique, and that unique perspective is what I think is going to help build my perspective, everybody's perspective, and give us all more information and data and actual ground facts that we can make decisions. And I think that's when I say our responsibility, I'm not saying that's what they should be doing, but it would be great if they would do it.
Definitely. And how about the things you do at the universities? Has that been something that, motivates you? What has been the direct influence that you've seen from that?
It's primarily is recruiting young individuals, inspiring them to think differently. We have a scholarship program. We're expanding this. We've done projects with different universities. We're looking at cooperation, co-ops, and we're looking at partnering into artificial intelligence applications for both the industry and business. So right now, that's kind of my focus. But since 2007, we've been very involved with, help establish programs, working and getting, summer jobs and hiring young people into the industry and also internships and now co-ops. Uh, but in the research side of things is how to apply artificial intelligence to our industry.
Oh, very, very interesting. And, to wrap up, Ed, I'd love to end with a more personal question. As
Sure.
someone who has spent decades pushing industry standards in a very highly technical sector, what keeps you motivated? What's your personal drive?
I see a bright future, Kimberly, although, what I'm telling you about metals might sound a little bit uh, this, but really, what's really motivating me right now is the implementation of artificial intelligence into my business and into the industry. I see as a force multiplier. I see it as something that could really help humanity. It can really help businesses. We'll be able to do more with less. Doesn't mean we have to do less. We're just going to be able to do a lot more. And I believe industries or companies that implement that, not just ChatGPT, but across the board, the framework of an artificial intelligence layer into the business aspect is going to make companies so efficient. And that's what's driving me. That's where I see the potential. I see companies being able to do more, and I see humanity creating more, and that's very exciting for me.
I always love to hear a really positive take on the future. And thank you for being with us today, Ed. Thanks for sharing all of your industry insights. I will link your LinkedIn in the description so that people can follow you. I highly encourage everyone to follow you on LinkedIn just to really stay up to date on such an important and vital industry that a lot of us may not be thinking about on a daily basis. So thank you, Ed, and until next time.
Well, thank you so much, Kimberly. I appreciate it. Thank you.